Well, shalom, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I think I know most of you. I've been here a couple of times and like to get out, visit brethren from different assemblies. But my name is Hector. I pastor a congregation up north in Sterling by the name of Shalom Assembly of Yahweh, along with Elder Dwayne Wilson, who is the associate pastor of that congregation, and my brother Robert, who's also a deacon at that congregation. Excited to be here today, as I'm sure a lot of you are. And I would like to discuss with you a topic that I've been looking into probably for the last couple of weeks, a topic that I feel is important for all of us, and it affects us as believers. Mainly, this topic affects our children, but because we love our children and we're connected to our children, it's going to affect us as grandparents, as parents, and then, of course, also our children. Now, is it safe to say that as parents, we would be hesitant to visit a congregation that does not hold the core beliefs that we would have because we would be afraid that it might affect our children? Is it safe to say something along those lines? Right? So I may not go visit a congregation that doesn't hold, or a church, if you will, that doesn't hold the core beliefs that I would have, because I would be scared or worried that my children might be affected by that. Recently we had the youth camp up in our assembly, and we had 83 youth there. And one of the visitors that we had, one of the parents that came by said, yeah, you know, I let my daughter, she's been going to a youth camp at this place in our area, and now her philosophy, the beliefs that we have about the Sabbath, the sacred names, the festivals, they're starting to change. She's starting to not want to be interested in that. So she said, so I'm not going to send her there anymore. I'm going to start sending her to here at this assembly, because here you guys are maintaining the names, the Sabbath, and the festivals. Makes sense, right? Right? I mean, it makes perfect sense. Now, do you realize that we don't think that way in everything? We sometimes pick and choose about where we send our children to be indoctrinated. But where we send our children is important in every aspect. Every aspect. So this message, this presentation I want to give to you, it's going to might make you a little bit uncomfortable, but hopefully, if nothing else, it'll give you some information for you to consider. All right, let's see if I do this right. Did it work? Hang on, here we go. So you saw what the title was of my presentation was. The objective that I want to present to you today is how the left is using Common Core and the equal standards deception to chip away at the fabric of our moral, biblical principles. Have you ever considered that morality has an origin? It has a place, and it's not in school textbooks, right? We all agree that it's in the Bible. That's morality. And when you take away the Bible, that is the origin of morality, guess what happens? You take away morality. You take away virtue. You take away truth. You take away anything that's good. And you also take away the most important person, who is our Heavenly Father. All right. So we all know this scripture. We use it all the time. I know you've seen it before. Who are we really fighting? We're not fighting people, right? We're not. We're actually fighting a system. One would say, I think, I can safely say that we are fighting a satanic, demonic system. Yes. When it says the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms, those aren't people. We're talking about forces, demonic, satanic. That's what we're fighting against. That's what we are up against. In Philippians 4:8, here we are told that thinking is important. What's in our thoughts is critical to who we are, not just as a people, how we act, how we think, and also what type of future we're going to have. But thinking is critically important because we are supposed to fix our thoughts on what is true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. The root. Everything has a beginning. Everything has a purpose or an intent. You ever think about that? Like, it doesn't just come out of nowhere. Things just don't appear out of nothing. Everything has a root, a foundation, a start. Right? We agree with that? What's the root of common core? Consider the root of what you believe. Your thoughts, your beliefs that you have. Where do they come from? They didn't just come out of the air. You either heard, take any sort of thought, take any thought that you can think of right now and ask yourself, where did that come from? Why is it that I believe like this? If you believe that you're an American, which you are, and you believe America is great and is the best nation in the world, would you think that if you were somewhere in Kenya or Somalia or Iraq? Would you think that? No, you wouldn't. So every thought that you have comes from somewhere. It has a source, a beginning, a point of reference. Many of you know who Emperor Constantine, most of us study him, but we don't always know all about him. Emperor Constantine, he's the root of common core. And I'm going to explain to you in a minute, I'm going to explain to you the reason why he is the root of common core. Constantine was an interesting fellow. Like I said, you've heard about this guy. But I'm going to give you something that hopefully you can keep with you and then maybe you can share with other people. Constantine is the father of Constantinianism. He's the father of the way that people think today. He and his bishops and his priests set out to initiate thoughts in people, a system, a way of thinking that is even held today, and many of you, your thoughts that you had before you were converted, the thoughts that you had come from Constantine. I'm going to give you an example. Anybody here ever had the thought in their mind about the Sabbath and said, every day is the Sabbath. It doesn't matter what day you worship on. Anybody ever thought that? I mean, come on, let's be honest. I'm not the only one, right? They ever thought that? You think that thought came from your minister. You think that thought came from whatever religion or affiliation you were connected to. That's what you thought. But I'm here to tell you that thought came from this guy right here. It came from Constantine. It's a system that he developed to control people. Let's look at the next slide. Constantine, Roman emperor, around AD 312, he converted to Catholicism. Oops. I didn't do that. He converted to Catholicism. He is credited with converting the Roman Empire to Catholicism, which is universalism. Everything's okay, anything goes. It's a universal religion. That's what, by the way, that's what Catholic means, as most of you guys know. I know I'm talking to scholars here, so bear with me. He believed in a universal system, common core, to control the people that he reigned over. Constantine invented Common Core, the universal system to control people. That's what he did. Well, I wouldn't say he invented it. I'll just say he promulgated it. It actually came from somebody else way before him. Constantine did not want people to think for themselves. He thought that a thinking person was a very dangerous person. You hear what I just said? Constantine thought that a thinking person was a very dangerous person. Dangerous to who? Dangerous to his power. Dangerous to his authority. Dangerous to who he was as the emperor. And he didn't want people to think. This is one of the quotes from Constantine, the father of Constantinianism, the father of Common Core or universalism, or basically anything goes. That's what universalism is. All right? He said this. He said, thinking is the great enemy of perfection. Thinking is the great enemy of perfection. The habit of profound reflection, I am compelled to say, is the most pernicious of all of the habits formed by civilized men. Yeah, I know. A lot of you guys, I had to look it up too. Pernicious is defined as having a harmful effect, especially in a gradual or subtle way. So Constantine was threatened by people thinking for themselves. He said it was a disease that he had to change in order to control them, because a thinking person was a dangerous person. Right? And so he developed this universal system, this common core, this Constantinianism, to have people not think for themselves, but to have them do everything he wanted them to do and let them think that they're doing it for themselves. That's the system that he created. And again, he promulgated those ideas through his bishops and through his priests and through the schools that they opened up. Education. I didn't do that. I don't have any kind of mental control to do that or ability. So, are we okay? Are we doing good so far? Right? Hang on, Frank. We'll wait to the end. So, Constantine's philosophy, believe what I want you to believe because I want you to believe it, and do not challenge it. That's what he thought. That's what he said. And that's what his bishops went out to do, right? They went out to convert people to believe a system. Oh, and they did it through two things. Number one was continuous repetition. Repeat everything. Repeat it to the point where you have to believe it once, even though when you might hear the truth, but you've said it for so often that you're going to believe what I tell you because that's what I want you to believe. And that's why today in the Catholic Church, everything's repeated. They repeat everything. They have a system of repetition. Anybody here has ever been Catholic? Then, right? They repeat everything. Everything's repetitive because it doesn't matter. He came out with this system basically that says it doesn't matter what you eat, okay? I mean, that's what it led to. It doesn't matter what you eat. But if you don't want to eat, say pig, that's okay. But in a universal system, nothing matters. Anything can be eaten, but it's your choice not to eat pork. Every day is the Sabbath. You can worship on any day. But if you want to keep Saturday or Sunday, whatever, that's okay. That's universalism. Now, I'm not telling you that having a common core is a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. Actually, the Bible recommends that believers have a common core. It does. What is the definition of common? It means everybody's the same. Common. Everything's equal. right? That's not a bad thing. That's what Yahweh wants us to have, only he wants us to have it in him. Core. What's core? It's your deep beliefs. It makes you who you are. It's your virtues. So I want to talk to you again a little bit about the core, or the Common Core, which is the system that our country has adopted as its primary educational system. The reason why I want to talk to you, and as we go through the slides, you're going to see that is directly going to affect believers. And it is directly affecting believers at this point. Because like I said, we might be concerned with not taking our children to a congregation, a church that teaches things that we don't believe in, but we might be okay with sending our children to an educational system that is very or could be very dangerous to our children, their faith, their salvation, their beliefs. If you have children, you should be feeling a little bit uncomfortable, and if you have grandchildren, it should be the same thing. But I'm not here to frighten you, and I'm not here to scare you. But I hope, like I said, I want to make you aware of what's going on out there. Common Core State Standards Initiative is an educational initiative in the United States that details what K through 12 students should know in English, language arts, and mathematics at the end of each grade. Well, it just seems like it's just about education. Come on, Hector, chill out, right? What's the big deal? Well, I think it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what I think. And we're gonna go through that a little bit more. Oops. Common Core teach children what to think, not how to think, and in the process, get rid of what morality is in terms of what the Bible says. Get rid of that, because that goes completely against Common Core, what the standardization system is. Anybody know who this guy is? He's the father of Common Core. He donated $6 billion for the cost. Has never taught high school. Is not a teacher. Very wealthy, but he's not a teacher. All right? And yet, he is the father of Common Core. He also, of course, believes all kinds of things that go against the Bible. He does not believe in the Bible the way we do. And he supports a lot of what today we call left-wing agendas, if you will, right? Things that go against the Bible. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Again, we have a lot of scholars here. None of you know this guy. Does anybody here know this guy? Raise your hand. None of you know him. His name is David Coleman. He is the Common Core architect. What are his qualifications for being the architect of Common Core, which is an educational system in the United States? Nothing. He doesn't qualify for it. But let's see what he has to say, all right? Let's read what David Coleman says. This is what David Coleman said. He says, we're composed of that collection of unqualified people who were involved in developing the Common Core standards. That's David Coleman. The architect of Common Core standards says we're not qualified to do that. We don't have the qualifications to do this. You know that I am, and I'm not putting myself up on a pedestal, although I feel like I'm up high today, right? I think I can say that safely. I'm more qualified to develop an educational system for the United States than he is. I taught college. I taught sociology, and I taught criminal justice. I know about developing curriculum. I know about grading curriculum. I know about what the standards of what people should learn from a textbook, right? Then this guy, I have more qualifications than he does. Then David Coleman, who again admits that he has no qualification to develop Common Core standards, and for which, by the way, a lot of our children are now involved in. Bill Gates, let's go back to this guy. Now, this is an actual quote. When asked about Common Core standards, do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's going to work? What did he say? It would be great if our education stuff worked, but that we won't know for probably a decade. I don't know if it's going to work. We got to find out to see what kind of results we have, see? Because we got a bunch of unprofessional people that are created common core standards. Now, okay, so help me out here because I'm not good at math. I have to admit it. But let's say a kid goes into school. A decade is 10 years, right? So a kid goes into school at the age of, say, 5 years old, okay? And he starts Common Core, the Common Core system. Are you really going to allow him to be in a system that's for 10 years they don't even know if it's going to work or not? I mean, is that something we want to, right? Don't want to offend anybody, but do we want to roll the dice on that? Do we want to take a chance on those kinds of things? I don't think so. But they're making it very difficult for us not to do that. And we'll talk more about that as we get closer to the end. I put that on there because I was thinking some people are going to say, who cares? Does it really matter? It's just an educational system. They're trying to educate our children. Really, it shouldn't matter, right? Teaching them math and English and all that good stuff that they need. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, we are told basically that we have to be careful, okay? Because there's going to come people that are going to try to take us away and lead us away from the scriptures and from what we know to be true. And they're going to teach us doctrines. And you know, doctrines, we always assume, we always think, well, it's got to be just biblical stuff. Certainly that's all it's talking about. But not necessarily. It's also talking about social issues, about things, how we feel about social issues. That's part of it as well. Because a Hebraic mind, see, a Greek mind separates themselves from the Bible. A person that thinks Greek, which most Westerners do, we can separate. That's why we can say, well, let's see, the first commandment is better than the 10th. Well, you know, you got to keep the 4th. See, that's a Greek mind. In a Hebraic mind, they don't think that way. Everything matters. It's not because it's 1 through 10. It's 1 through 10 as one body. And you can't separate the body into pieces because then it's death, right? If you cut your arm off from your body, you might die from bleeding, and you will not have a full purpose, function. Because in Hebraic thought, everything is function, everything is purpose, and the Ten Commandments is a body that comes together that has a purpose and it has an intent. You cannot separate one from the other. But in our Greek minds, we do that. Adolf Hitler said, let me control the textbooks and I will control the state. You think that's true? It is true. Whoever controls the textbooks controls the states. And that's exactly what is the message from those architects that created Common Core. So what else did he say? He says, he alone who owns the youth gains the future. Another message from Adolf Hitler. He alone who owns the youth gains the future. We, in a Sacred Name Assemblies, we should be mindful of it. We should pay attention to this. Because we should be the ones that own our youth. Because if we own our youth, we own the future. Because our children, our youth, are the future. They just are. If we don't train our youth to minister, if we don't train our youth to worship the Creator, if we don't train our youth to be obedient to His Torah, who's going to do it? Because we're going to die off at some point in time, right? So what he's saying is true. This guy was a genius. He was. Because he did just that. He went and he started owning the youth. And then he changed, look at what he did in the world. And it's going to happen again, brothers and sisters. It's heading that way. I'm afraid to say. I'm not a prophet, but I know that if I throw something up, 10 times, more than likely it's going to come back down on the 11th time. And that's exactly what's happening with history. We're heading that way already. I'm going to go through these very fast. Common Core standards were written in '09. The writing group of 27 contained few educators, but a significant number of representatives of the testing industry. There are also other clips that I didn't put on here when Bill Gates and others that were the architects of Common Core, they said, well, once we get the test straight, then Common Core will make more sense. Once we get this test straight. It's like, why don't you make the curriculum right, and then don't worry about the test later. But anyway, that's how they're doing it. From the outset, the Common Core standards were marked by the absence of public participation, transparency, or educator participation. 42 of the 50 U.S. states and the District of Columbia are members of the Common Core State Standards Initiative, with the states of Oklahoma, Texas, Virginia, Alaska, Nebraska, Indiana, and South Carolina not adopting the initiatives at a state level, but they were adopted in some areas at their local level or city level. But I assure you that all of these states are going to eventually adopt them because they're tied to money. And right now, a lot of schools are in trouble. And if they don't want to teach Common Core, they're not going to get the money from the federal government. That's just what happens. Remember the root? Everything has a beginning, a purpose, or intent. Remember that? We talked about that, right? What's the intent? In Myers versus Nebraska, 1923 Supreme Court decision was a significant decision because it decided that people could educate their children the way they wanted to. Right? So, they had to figure out a way to change that because their true intent now is that parents' involvement in a child's education has been a hindrance to the federal government. Therefore, there will be measures taken so that the children are owned by the government, not the parents. They are literally saying it openly. You can research this. They're not hiding it. They don't have to. They are pretty bold saying that they're going to change the laws to where the state is going to own the children. You will not have a say-so over your children. That's where they're heading. Pretty scary stuff. In Massachusetts, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals infamously said in 2005 in a sex education case, once parents make the choice as to which school their children will attend, their fundamental right to control the education of their children is at the least substantially diminished. The lower courts is where they're heading. You see, what they've done in the last 20 years is that they have appointed a bunch of liberal judges from all respects. I mean, come on, listen. What did the Supreme Court just do back in June? Right? Remember the marriage? Remember that? Do you honestly think that they're not doing all this stuff at the lower level? Of course they are. They've appointed tons and tons of liberal judges so that they can have their agenda changed to what they're wanting. It makes perfect sense. You control the power. You control the decisions. You control the power. You come up. You basically decide whatever you want. Now, why would you think I put that up there? Any ideas? Transgender, right? Bathrooms? Yeah. Now, I want to tell you something. This is a big deal right now in the media. It's everywhere. You're getting Facebook messages. You're seeing it everywhere, right? It's huge. People are boycotting Target. They're saying, don't go there. There's stories about everything Target. But guess what's been overlooked? And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know it for a fact. I didn't ask any of them because I don't know any of them to ask, but I would if I knew them. But they did it on purpose. I believe that they picked Target to pass this rule, transgender, have the people focused so that you can ignore this. All gender restrooms in schools. Yeah. How many of you know that they passed that? Obama did. More people know about Target than they know about the schools. Did you know that? A lot of people have no idea that your daughter, our daughters, our sons are not going to be able to shower with boys just because they feel like they want to be girls. People don't know that. They have created this system Focus people on the target, and it's interesting, right? Let's go back to that symbol. It's just funny. Look, it's a target, right? We're all focused on the. They're playing with us, brothers. But that's my opinion. I can't prove it. But I believe that they're playing with us because they picked a store that has a target because they want people to target that, to focus on that, so that Obama can do this. And then he can justify it through the Bible. Yeah. This is what he said. He said that his Christian beliefs and the Bible have convinced him that it's okay to open up the bathrooms to all genders. And you know what he said? Because of the golden rule that the Bible talks about. That's not even in the Bible. That's a made up. This golden rule is not in the Bible. You won't find it in there. But that's what he said. He said, of course I did it. Right? The Messiah supports this. We got to treat everybody equal. See, they're using the Bible. As much as they want to get rid of the Bible, they want to use the Bible to appease believers, to appease to Christians, so that they. How many of you know or have read where Target has been boycotted? Right? How many of you have read where any high school or grade school has been boycotted? Huh? No hands. Do you think there's a problem with that? Again, they're training us. It's my opinion. You could tell me that I'm wrong, but I believe they're training us so that they're focusing us on one and keeping us to not even think about what they're doing at the educational level, because they know that if they can control the youth, they can control the world. All right, I'm almost done here, so I just want to talk about a couple of things real quick. The system that is currently in play, we've talked about it, some of you guys have mentioned it, in society, is designed to oppose the Creator. Everything that's going on right now in society is designed to oppose Him from every respect. And I mean every respect. Right? And one of the things that they're doing in school, at the school level, is that the government wants to set up school-based health centers. Boy, it sounds nice, doesn't it? I mean, come on, Common Core, you just want to, it's really all about education. We want to set up school-based health centers for our children to help them. You know, a happy child, what the quote is, a healthy child is a happy child. And so they want to set up clinics that are easily accessible to schools, or set up clinics in schools because they're school-based health centers. But what they also want to do through these school-based centers is that they want to be able to provide not just those sex pills, okay, also vaccinations, and to do abortions to children and young people, and young girls rather, without having the parents say anything about it. You see, they're masquerading something that's good, but their intent is to use it for something negative or something that opposes the Creator. And you know that it's a lot better if I give you poison with sugar than if I give you poison with lemon juice. It's a lot easier to swallow. And that's what the system is doing to us. They're feeding us all these good standards about equality, but they're destroying the morality and the standards of the Scriptures. So they come up with so many terms that you guys know. You know, all these terms that they have out there, politically correct. The terms, they changing the terms all the time. They're already talking about changing the term Common Core because a lot of people are thinking it's negative, and they're going to change it to something different. But it's going to be still corn syrup. They're just changing the name. And I know Solomon knows about that because he works in the food industry. Did you guys know that they changed the name from corn syrup to other names so that they're more palatable to the people, so that people accept them? Did you guys know that they did that?
You mean high fructose?
High fructose corn syrup, absolutely. They change the name so that people don't recognize it and so that people will accept it, not knowing that that's exactly what it is. And they can do that. Oh, something else, too. I forgot to tell you about David Coleman. And research this guy. He's a guy that came up, remember the architect of Common Core? Not a teacher, has never taught anything. Oh, he deals with data, information. Now, what kind of information does he deal with? He has a company. He owned a company. And this data basically is, he was tracking people, their habits, how they think, based on their behaviors. And he was helping corporations. He helped Microsoft. So he's helped a lot of companies become multi-billion-dollar companies because of the data that he used. In other words, the way that people thought and the way that people think and the things that they like and how they like them, right? Things like, hey, people are complaining about high fructose corn syrup. Let's change the name and they'll like it. And they would, and they did. But also he studied behavior in people. There is a science out there, brothers and sisters, that believes that we are rats and that they can train us to do what they want us to do if they show us the right doors or the right lights or the right flavors. They see us as animals that will do anything that they want us to do, and they study our behavior. They know, for example, at what times people get on Facebook. They know what things that they pause. There's a study, for example, if you're going through Facebook, you're seeing, oh, there's this, then this. Oh, there's Hector. I think I'll watch that picture for 5 minutes. I'm just joking. But let's say that you do that with some news topic. Oh, hey, this guy likes Jewish stuff. Boom, we're going to hammer him with Jewish stuff. Oh, this guy watches this. Oh, this guy watches that. Oh, hey, look, the lady here's, they're into Pinterest. They study us, and that's what this guy did. Now, what they figured out is we can control the brain, we can control behavior if we utilize the data that we have and implement certain curriculum. So what looks like math, what looks like actual math, you're doing math, right? Because you're learning. It's actually a way to train the brain to behave systematically the way that you want it to. Only, I believe, you're not doing it for today, you're doing it for tomorrow. Because, see, I believe Common Core, they're just dipping their foot in the water what they can get away with. That's all they're doing. They're going to the edge of the water, saying, okay, oh yeah, let's see what we can get away with. Let's see what those Americans will allow us to do. And at the same time, tell them that we're not professionals, that we have no experience in this. And let's see what they do anyway. Go ahead and dip your foot in the water. Because they're getting ready for something bigger. All the rhetoric about socialism and communism and leftism and all that stuff, it's real. It's very real. And they're not afraid to openly speak. Here's something else that they're going to be teaching our children, and they're already teaching our children. Only they don't do it like, they do it in such a way that it's not necessarily like, they're not going to necessarily say, it's okay for two men to marry, but they might show them a picture of families. One picture shows a man and a woman with children. Another picture might just show, and it might even be a little picture of two guys just sitting there, not doing anything necessarily. But what you're doing is you're training the children, because one thing we know, you guys know this from having children, is that our children believe usually anything you tell them at a very young age. And those are the kids that they're targeting, are very young age children with this system of thinking, what they're imposing in their brain. So when they get to the point, as much as you guys believe that this is wrong, they will believe just as hard that it is right. And you will have a hard time convincing them of that. Because they have taken the Bible out of the picture. They've taken morality out of the picture. They took prayer back in 1962 in public schools. And it has gone downhill since then. Now, maybe some of you would say, well, yeah, good, because, they were praying in the title. But listen, you're missing the point. The act of prayer is significant. You realize that? The act of prayer is significant. It's a good thing, right? Because when you're praying to the Lord today, you have a good ability and a chance to pray to Yahweh tomorrow. But if you don't pray at all, guess what? If prayer is not part of your life, if it isn't something that you do on a regular basis, then chances are it's going to be very difficult to convince you to pray at all, even to the Creator. That's the danger of what they did back in 1962, of taking prayer out of the Scriptures. In the Nimrodic system, Nimrod was the enemy of Yahweh. Everything he did was set up to oppose the Creator. Get the Creator out of the minds of the people. Create a system that completely opposes him. Create a system that completely changes everything. Some of the members of Obama's cabinet have openly said that being a woman or being a man should not matter. Being a woman should not change anything. There's no difference between the two. Right? Everybody's equal. Everybody's the same. What they're doing in the military, what they're doing in schools, they're starting with our children at that level because they know that once they have our children, they have our future. Yahweh bless you guys. Thank you.